I'm not fat, I'm just thick-boned. I'm not fat, I'm just well-built and thick in the middle. I'm not fat, I've got plenty of excuses.
Hello and welcome to the show, Colourful Conversations with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark. This week we debate how to avoid being fat. Well, at the current rates in which we are developing as a society, it is predicted, particularly in the UK alone, that there will be a significant number of obese adults by 2030. In fact, nearly 11 million of us could be obese. That's alarming, an absolutely staggering set of figures. Well, when we also think about what are the real root causes to this, is it just something that we're seeing that's happening now? Or perhaps maybe it stems back to many, many years of bad habits, bad products on the market, and maybe just some other influences that are causing us to be so fat. Well, are we just getting too big for our boots? Are we actually not really helping ourselves? Should we be doing more exercises? Yes, Clergyman Pete, what is really the way that we should be going about leading a healthy life? Maybe we're just two greedy little piggies. Well, this does actually make me think. But maybe the best way to set this up is with a little poem. This is a poem called Meet Your Maker. Beware what lies ahead.
Yes.
3 little playful party pigs lived like lords of the flies, housed in higgledy-piggledy-digs, and each had enormous thighs. Then, after scoffing too many figs, they told each other too many lies. Each day they jumped in joyful jigs, deceiving their gigantic size. Crackling amidst the rickety rigs came squeals and a chorus of cries. The house collapsed and snapped like twigs, and now they were crushed into porky pies. Yes, unfortunately the little piggies got too big. Well, Clergyman Pete, now I do know that you have a story to tell here, isn't it? You're not the man you used to be.
Yes, yes. I've recently lost a lot of weight and got fit, and the way that I did is interesting in that there's historical precedent for it. Back in the 19th century, in fact, I have a date, 1861. The Harley Street surgeon William Harvey prescribed a diet for the extremely fat Mr. William Banting, who was a wealthy chap, and was prepared to pay for a dietitian to teach him how to lose weight. Hugely fat, but had been a rower when he was at university, and he had been no stranger to exercise, and yet he couldn't lose weight. He was prescribed hours and hours of exercise and horse riding and all this sort of thing, try and lose weight. He couldn't do it. And in fact, as we all know, just increasing your exercise doesn't get you to lose weight. And what happened was he was prescribed a high-fat, high-protein diet, low carbohydrate. In fact, no carbohydrates. It was believed at that time that cheese had carbohydrates in it. This isn't true, but at least not most cheese. Your standard cheese doesn't, but that's why it was only allowed in small doses. He could drink some certain types of wine, and he could eat a lot. This he loved, and when he started eating it, he, of course, was a little trepidatious. You know, he's an extremely fat, so fat he's going to die of being overweight, and he starts eating huge amounts of fat and protein. But he lost weight, and over that year, he lost over 30 pounds in weight, and he kept the weight off by keeping on this diet. And that name, William Banting, became a verb. I am Banting, going on that sort of diet. It was a very popular way of losing weight until 1959, when it was written. That's the actual date when the major medical and nutrition textbooks wrote it out. And this new idea of having carbohydrate-based diets came in. And then people started getting fatter.
Yes.
Strange, isn't it? In fact... Well, that was when it started at that time, but it really took up in the 70s, I believe.
Well, I think that this is where, in my opinion, the problems really started.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to sort of give just my view on this. So, Clergyman Pete and myself are pretty much of a similar age, and we went to school together, as everybody knows. But when we sort of look back at our childhood, you start to question what
The diet,
on earth
yes,
we
yes,
were
yes,
actually
yeah.
given as a diet from breakfast, dinner time, and evening meal. So I'll give you a few examples here. That one of the things that I noticed personally is I did actually get larger during the 1970s, and when I look back, I realised that processed food became really the staple diet. Everything from eating pot noodles to pizzas. There was instant mashed potato. There was instant
Yes.
everything. Everything
Yes.
had to change because, of course, society just got quicker in terms of, we didn't have enough time on our hands. The days when perhaps our parents could sort of slave over a stove and start cooking things naturally seemed to disappear. There seemed to be more flavored crisps. There just seemed to be more sweets on the market. And suddenly our appetites just got hooked on sugar
Yes.
and salt. And not surprisingly, I went through many pairs of trousers very quickly.
Yes. Yes.
And suddenly realised that actually my size was perhaps not normal.
Yes, well, yes, that is the case. And if you look at the country as a whole, Britain, and over in America, in fact, you would say the
yeah.
Western world was going through this
Correct.
change. In '77, there was the U.S. dietary goals based on a carbohydrate, low-fat diet, and UK guidelines were also issued. And people, as soon as this change in diet was promulgated, cut out fat. Eat a carbohydrate based diet. Fat is bad for you, gives you heart attacks. Being pushed and pushed and pushed. People got fatter, hugely fatter. Obesity became an epidemic. And yet it seemed like no one, or at least not people in authority and not enough people, put two and two together and thought, hang on, that's when we changed the dietary advice. And that's where everyone got fat.
Yes. Well, there's also something else as well.
Could they be cause
I
and
want to
effect?
mention that in the 1970s in particular,
Yes.
we were encouraged to do a lot of sport.
Yeah.
And actually, we walked to school and walked back again, folks. Yes. We ran around the fields, but it made no difference because, ironically, we were still very large. And so, a little bit like the little poem, we were greedy little pigs getting bigger and bigger. And really, unfortunately, the whole system seemed to creak. So, actually, exercise is important, but it's about what you eat as well. And I think this is probably the point of the show. We talked about, how do you avoid getting fat? So, Clergyman Pete, just now explain what you actually do as part of your routine to lose weight and maintain a healthy diet.
Yes. Now let's give my as an example. Me as an example, I put on weight gradually, but then suddenly this increased just recently. So I had put on maybe 2 stone in weight in nearly 2.5 years, in fact, and I wasn't eating any more. Wasn't that I was not doing exercise. I had a regular routine of going out for a run, and yet I couldn't lose weight. And I looked into old Banting, who I referred to at the start of the show, but I was put onto this by my wife, who has some medical training, and she'd been reading into the data of what actually made you fat, and saw that there was a specific mistake that's made, and you can see why linguistically it's made. If you eat too much fat, you be fat. Not true. The fat that you have on your body is caused by conversion of glucose in the bloodstream, which comes from carbohydrates and doesn't come from fats. When they're metabolized, that's not what's produced. And so the other part of it is that they're not. The fats are not burnt as energy at all, because we eat too much carbohydrates. But so I took this step. I reduced the carbohydrates I was eating, like Banting did, to virtually zero, and then gradually reintroduce them. So I cut out potatoes, I cut out pasta, I cut out bread, all of which I enjoyed eating. And in researching, I also saw that if things like if fatty foods like cream aren't actually bad for you, why am I buying this green milk when I don't like the taste of it? Green milk, by the way, for foreign listeners, green means the colour of the cap, which signifies that it's semi-skimmed, not the colour of the milk. And I started having cream in my coffee, which is delicious. So I started to eat more protein and fat-based diet, including a big cooked breakfast, fried egg, fried bacon, fried in lard. So I get fat for the energy that I wanted, and removed virtually all the carbohydrate. I gradually reintroduced things like eating apples and that sort of thing, which have a little bit of carbohydrate in, and cut out all refined sugar. No sweets, no cakes of any sort. And so what I found was that over the course of 3 months, I lost 30 pounds in weight. And keeping the same diet, I didn't then go on losing weight. I lost a little bit more than that. But I then kept at my same weight, but started to put muscle back on, because even though I wasn't doing that much more exercise, I could do the exercise I was doing with more gusto. So I just became naturally fitter because it was easier. And I'm at the stage now when I'm starting to do a little bit more exercise. But as one researcher has put it, you can observe that people who are slim and are not fat do more exercise. But that doesn't mean that doing more exercise made them slim. You have to look at what makes them slim. And first, it's the diet. The most important thing is diet. You need to do exercise for other reasons as well as keeping your weight down. It is good for you to do exercise. But the crucial thing that I did was cut out the carbs, low carb diet, a low carbohydrate diet, high in protein and fat, has made me fitter. And just one more thing, it's not just slimmer and fitter, it's also, and there are reasons for this, reduce the number of times that I get ill. I know you, Mark, often joked about the number of times I would catch a cold or catch diseases. Well, that's been much reduced. And I'm told that this is due to some of the nutrients, some of the factors that are found in the fat, in meat and products like that you eat, that you miss out on if you're trying to cut that out for ill-judged, supposedly scientific judgments. But you, Mark, now you, as you stated before, you put on weight from eating lots and lots of sweets and stuffing your face with those bags of sweets you buy from the corner shop and Dolly mixture, all that sort of thing. That's right, isn't it? But you were able to lose weight as well. Now, how did you go about losing weight? You went through a similar process, did you? Or was it something different?
Well, first of all, I stopped pinching your sweets. That was the obvious thing. But I think that many people would say, yes, I am the ultimate yo-yo, in that sense that I mentioned in the 1970s, but through the 1980s, actually, I certainly grew up and was actually relatively slim, albeit that habits change. Typically, many people use excuses where perhaps they don't have enough time to do exercise, and particularly during the 1990s, when you're traveling on business and if you're in corporate meetings, you have corporate lunches, and then guess what? The old corporate belly tends to sort of expand across the boardroom floor.
Yes, a certain gravitas.
Along with everyone else, you get the picture, don't you?
Yes.
And a lot of fat heads tend to sort of squeeze themselves into the executive suite. Suite being probably the operative word. But I noticed that I found certain tasks rather difficult during the 1990s. Just climbing the stairs could be a bit of a challenge, but really that something had to be done about it, because I realized, apart from having to change all my clothes, because the belt can only expand so far.
Yes.
So it's about point of responsibility. Now, the thing that I recognize is it wasn't just about cutting out the cakes and the sweets. I actually decided, as tough as it was, to cut out all cakes, sweets, biscuits, alcohol, and also at the same time change my routine and force myself to do manageable exercises. Now, this is not always easy because what you have to do is you have to stick to the discipline. Now, many people will say, oh, they've given up biscuits and sweets. And then if they're honest with themselves, what they suddenly find is a few weeks later, they're creeping back into the bad habits.
Yes, yes.
The hardest part is in a social environment, and possibly even in a business environment, where you are almost faced with a situation where you have very little alternatives. And that really is where, again, you have to try and stick to your values. And I mean the healthy values.
Yes.
So what I did was, and we're talking about, the turn of the century here, I did literally change the habit, and I remarkably lost nearly 4 stone.
Yes.
4 stone.
Yeah.
Now, think about that. And I did it within 6 months.
Yes.
Now, some people would say that is medically not a great thing to do. Well, let me explain here, because it was managed carefully. I was extremely conscious that I had to have sufficient nutrients, the right balanced diet. But ironically, what I was having was the right balanced diet for my age, my height, my build. And I would say I'm pretty much sort of an average build and a sort of an average height for a man. But what it did do is it literally, the pounds just disappeared.
Yeah.
The carbohydrate issue is something which is an interesting one, because my personal view here is that I think you can have those type of foods, but it's the volume.
Oh yeah, sure.
I think you have to balance it.
Yeah.
So for goodness sake, we're not saying don't eat potatoes or don't eat pasta.
No,
it's important that your body can adjust, and that's the one thing that I did note as well, because coming back to Clergyman Pete's point, I've seen examples where people have said, oh, you can't eat meat, take out meat, this is a bad thing. Actually, that's not a good thing. You need to have meats. And I know there are going to be a lot of vegetarians screaming at us, listeners, saying, no.
Yeah, don't give up the meat.
Okay.
No,
but you do need to have the vitamins and nutrients. And actually, if you hone in your exercise routine and your dietary routine, you will notice that difference. Now, my advice is this: always take advice, and take advice carefully, because you will see a lot of information out there about what you should and shouldn't do.
Yes.
Remember, there is something else which is really, very important, because, of course, and this is not to sort of alienate people, but people have different requirements. Whether you're a man or woman, whether you're in your early ages or whether you're in a more mature ages, you have to think about what's right for you.
Yeah.
But ultimately, there are some core disciplines. The one thing I did want to mention, Clergyman Pete, and there are different measures in which you can judge your health.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that's talked about is BMI, body mass index.
Yeah.
And this is just, let's clarify what that means. This is basically a measurement where if you take your height against your frame, your body weight, etc., there's a calculation which comes out as an index that if you are between 25 and 29, then that is one measure, and an obese, if the body mass index crosses 30.
Yes.
So if you calculate, now please bear in mind that isn't just the measure alone, because some people put a lot of focus on
yes, but we'll just comment on that. BMI is your height it's your height in meters divided by your weight, a square divided by your weight in kilometers, weight in kilograms. I get it out. Not kilometers. That would be silly. Well, you could calculate it. You have to, you have to use the right measurements, and but you can put them into a body mass index calculator. We'll put a link in the show description. You'll be able to have a go for yourself, and it does, as you say, as Mark was saying, give you a sort of idea whether you're in the healthy range. And to give you an idea, I was a BMI of 29 when I was at my heaviest, so nearly obese, and I'm now have a BMI of 24, so I'm in the healthy range. But it doesn't work for everyone. Yes, people are different sizes. So It doesn't work that well, and it's not a linear scale. So, it doesn't mean that if you go up by BMI of 1 that you've got to buy a huge amount. It's not a linear scale. And you shouldn't really be under 18, otherwise you're too stiff. But actually, I've heard that a better measure, and in terms of predicting whether you're going to have a heart attack, it is the best measure. But a better measure of health is your waist. Certainly for men, if you have a waist that is half your height or less, then you're at a healthy weight. So that's another way of calculating.
Yes. The other thing I wanted to mention as well here is that Clergyman Pete and I have sort of been through these different trials and tribulations in some cases. But I think the most important thing is that don't get too obsessive, because what can happen is and I've seen people where that to the point where they're worried that they haven't lost a couple of pounds over a few weeks, because in the process in which the body adjusts, you can see that sometimes actually you might put on weight, and the reason that you're putting on weight is because you're building up your muscle strength.
Yes.
So if you're doing exercises, whether you're doing, say, a circuit routine using weights or doing gym exercises or possibly even running, your body will naturally, if you certainly haven't done it before, start to turn the other way. So you might be reducing the fat down, but you may be building up the muscle strength, and that brings on weight. So please bear in mind that don't get too obsessed with it. What you can see is if you're getting through your routines much more effectively. So, for example, if you're running up that hill and it becomes a lot easier, you're starting to notice that you're improving. It takes time. Don't worry; it's not going to take. You're not going to do it overnight.
I would advise. Don't weigh yourself more than once a week. Once a week is certainly adequate. And also, I would say, this is my advice, is don't count your calories. It's not to do with those calories that you see printed on items that you buy are not accurate. They've got nothing to do, well, very little to do with how much energy you can get out of the food. Now, I used to teach this at school, that was the case, as a science teacher. And then I'd still pay attention to it when I bought products. So I thought, that's fattening. That isn't. Nonsense. Those figures are taken from bomb calorimeters, which explode the food to get the energy out. It doesn't explode inside you. It requires a chemical reaction. And that's why we can safely say that fat isn't being turned from fat in your diet to fat in your body. That's not what's happening. What's happening is carbohydrates are being converted into glucose in the blood, and then that's being turned into fat if you don't burn it off. And so there is this element of calories in, calories out, in that you can burn them off. But it's not as simple as counting the calories in and then doing enough energy to get rid of them. No, what you need is a balanced diet, which is a small amount of carbohydrate, some fat, and some protein. And if you eat like that, you'll get nutrients from all the different types of food, and you'll live a healthy diet, live a healthy life. But it's not a diet in that you just do it for a bit, then when you've lost weight, you stop. It's a change of lifestyle. This is what you're going to eat from now on. So make sure you enjoy it. Do you not think have foods that you like?
Indeed. Well, now here we're going to talk about the UK just specifically, because apparently obesity levels, according to statistics, the government statistics, have more than tripled in the last 30 years.
Yes.
So it says that actually 24% of British men are obese, which is apparently second highest rate in the world. And so 26% of British women are obese. Now, the point being here is that is a staggering amount. So nearly 1 in 4 people, adults, are actually obese. Now, the ones that sit slightly underneath that are actually just overweight. So, we're talking about the ones that are on the BMI scale who are 30 and over. So what culturally, something has gone horribly wrong. Now, we gave a little bit of experience from our side because of maybe we think it's to do with manufacturers who brought in bad products, and perhaps our parents maybe gave us too many of these bad products, and that wasn't great. But things have changed. There has been a lot of government initiatives trying to address this. Why is it not happening? Why is it not getting through the message?
Yes, well, I mean, can I give a simple answer to that? And that is still the standard advice is to have a carbohydrate-based diet. And we both shown from our experience that not that you should get rid of carbohydrates, as some extremists would say, and then end up having to take additives, like in the Atkins diet, to replace them. No. Eat a balanced diet, but a balanced diet based on fat and protein with some carbohydrates. So the standard advice from the government, from the National Health Service in Britain, is still that same advice that produced the epidemic of obesity in the first place. And I think it's scandalous that is still the case when independent think bodies are pointing out the fact that obesity is due to people incorrectly thinking fat in the diet equals fat on the body, and it simply isn't true. That, together with this problem of feeling we have to drive everywhere, and certainly not walk as much as we used to, that's producing generation after generation of people who are less healthier than the one before. So, how are we to change it? Well, first of all, get the truth out there. Please help us share this episode of Mark and Pete. Get the truth out there.
Yes.
It's not calories in, calories out. It is not the way to control your diet. Eat a healthy diet, balanced diet. Eat enough fat and protein and a little bit of carbohydrate, and you will lose weight if you you can eat delicious foods. Some foods that you thought you couldn't eat anymore. It's actually a better diet. I'm enjoying my food more now. I've cut out even the dolly mixtures and put in some delicious food to replace. And that's how expensive. Let this be part of the response to this. You can tell other people. An easy way to do: just share this episode of Mark and Pete, and tell them, listen to this. These guys lost weight. These guys are slim and healthy, and of course, you could say incredibly good looking, because you can say that. You could say that because it's just an audio show.
We have the face that fits the radio, should we say?
Yes.
But I want to mention that it is, as a conclusion to this, is all about a point of responsibility. We all need to take responsibility here, because according to recent studies by the government, just the United Kingdom alone spends around £48 billion a year dealing with healthcare and social causes related to obesity. Now, remarkably, that is in itself $1 billion more than was spent on armed violence and war funds. Think about it. So if you think about what we're doing as a society, we're not only putting pressure on ourselves and our families, but also on the nation as well. So maybe, listeners, it's not just about the United Kingdom, it's about the world. The world needs to be fitter, both mentally and physically. So what do you think, listeners, about this? Do you think maybe the problem has got out of hand, or is it down to the government? Is it down to manufacturers? Is it down to ourselves? Should we actually be thinking about our choices when we have food? Well, why not let us know? Why don't you log on to markandpete.com and let us know your thoughts? Well, thanks for joining us today and listening to Colourful Conversations with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark.
Another Big Mac?
Yum, yum.